for those that are in some kind of a full-time role that deals with media ministry stuff, my hope was for, okay, can't use my Bible now, thanks. My hope, no, you can. Hope was for this one to be what we've had in the past, where we just exchange some ideas. I asked everybody to bring something and then promptly left mine sitting in the lobby of our church. So if you're ever in Huntsville, I'll share it with you then. But maybe we can cast some stuff up on the screen. But the first part, I thought, since the Ben and Travis are with us today.
Infamy.
That's right.
Yes.
They have done a great job. A lot of different media. Like, first of all, your videos have been great, better than anything I've ever seen on TikTok ever. Anything, ever.
I agree. This is twice today you've said Lee might disagree, and I agree with you 100%.
Buddy, pals. No, but you guys have kind of. I feel like you've. And maybe I've missed it, but just the progression I've seen was do some fun stuff for EYC that turned into some other like little fun side off projects here, and then into kind of a fullish time podcasts for the very regular podcast presence. So I was curious, my own curiosity here, of what was that progression and why did you guys kind of choose to go down that road? And specifically with the podcast, how has that evolved over time?
Well, I feel like to some degree we've not used, I guess the born on third base. Like some ways we've not used it very well. If you consider like the CYC stuff, but it's all been trial and error. I think I've been dabbling in podcasts since like 2010, and that certainly was just a goofball, which is actually my forte. It brings the seriousness here. But podcast wise, like I had the leukemia diagnosis. He had lost a girlfriend in college in a car accident, and I think I was like processing all that, and I was like, hey, let's do a podcast episode. I'll do one about the leukemia. I'll do one about fostering. You do your story of coming to be a counselor, and we might not ever do another episode, but I feel like I got a testimony.
Easy.
So share my testimony at some level about what we've been through, and we didn't know anything. We just kind of jumped in. Same thing with the Ben and Travis videos. Like we filmed it with our phone for CYC, and then somebody came along graciously in our Twitter DMs. It was like, "Hey, I love your stuff, but it looks terrible. Could I possibly help you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, we don't have any money to pay you. I don't care. I'll just come do it." And so a guy drives from Ohio. And basically shot him for us, and he was like, "I just want to update your quality." And so, but anyways, for the podcast, I think it was like a year or so. We just kind of threw stuff. We would interview people, people that had been through stuff and how they had kind of overcome it. And then in 2020, when the whole world shut down, and we had time on our hands, and other people had time on their hands to be interviewed, we kind of kicked it into overdrive and kind of did our homework. We bought what's it called, Podcast A to Z, where guys had really done really well to the point that they could quit their day jobs doing podcasts. And I mean, it was A to Z from one point to the other. Just kind of spilled their guts on how to do it, and so we kind of kicked it in overdrive and was like, let's do it the best we can. And so it's been kind of trial and error through that. We listen to other podcasts and we're like, I kind of like what they did here, and I kind of like what this group did here. Let's give it a shot and kind of set up. And so we had that little class that we took, and kind of just, and of course one of the tenets for them was to, is it niche down, niche, I don't know.
Logos,
but to kind of like really get focused. And that's probably something we didn't do because initially we just talked about whatever came to mind. We tried to handle serious, heavy things and then end it with something fun. What's a fun question to kind of lighten the mood? And we wanted to make sure that was the case. And it was so like whatever that really the title itself, I think it was Batify. We were just trying to hit on the Ben and Travis CYC thing. And then in that course, they're like, hey, you gotta be
Which
specific about what
what
you're doing. Like, what are the 3 things that you want to hit in every episode, and kind of change your approach so people can see the episode, they can see the title of the podcast and kind of know what they're getting. And so
that is Ben and Travis, if y'all
Sure.
never
Yes.
figured that out. Some
Sure.
people are
some
like,
people that blows their mind, like they
I just figured it out.
there you go. So, a lot of it was just kind of that, like what's going to work. And then we kind of got into, we want to, once again, some of the advice we got was find a platform and stick to that platform. And we kind of went against that. It was kind of like, we're going to try to hit everywhere. And it depends on what you're getting in for. The class that we took, it was to make money, make money. We're not against making money at all. But we were kind of like, hey, there's a lot
we don't
to
really make any.
Yeah, we don't. That's good. It was kind of the approach to the presentation earlier. It was, there's a lot of bad on this platform. How can we offset that? How can we put something that is good to middling quality, but also something that's important to them? I think one great example is Trey and Lee.
Morgan.
I mean,
Yeah.
you hear the door slam, and they'll even say, I'm not editing that out, but their material, their content is just incredible. And so the one advice we kept getting was get out there. You just need to start and learn kind of as you go. But a lot of it was that. We wanted to take any platform and kind of combat the dark side of those things. And so even when TikTok was kind of getting off the ground, it was like, I went to him, I was like, hey, you got 3 to 5 minute motivational mental health thing that's just, and now 5 minutes is too long, but can we get that? And then we, the helping healing humor used to be like I said, it was whatever. We talked football when the bowl season rolled around, and we kind of got to the point, it was like, well, there's some people that tune in, that's not what they're looking for. And so I started the little 3 to 5 minute football thing. It was just, so much of it was when we see something that was like super negative or very combative, we would want to offer something that people could come to and not feel under attack per se. They may or may not get something that was really hard hitting or not, but it was fun. And just kind of offering our goofball side, but also throwing in some stuff from the expert, somebody with some expertise. And then I got free counseling out of it, so that was good.
Good.
I was a guinea
Do you guys
pig.
track engagement, that kind of stuff?
Yes, we're not as good. I've kind of fallen behind on that a little bit. There are times of the year that it's a lot bigger. Obviously CYC rolls around. We get a lot of eyeballs then that kind of come in, so we try to really amp up our content around that time. Just kind of put some stuff out there. I know we've had you on around that time and things that people want to see. There are ways of finding pain points. I know that Google is a great engine, but they even have more specific things that you can look for. Like if you put in mental health, obviously you're going to get a ton of stuff, but you can even cull it down for that, and they'll give you that information pretty easy. That you can go, okay, this is a big deal. People are searching this like crazy. We need to do an episode on that. But ultimately, people want stories. Our episodes are always better when we have a female on that has a story of overcoming. Our experience is that women in, especially the Church of Christ, are really into podcasts. Men are coming around, but early on it was ladies want to hear ladies. They want to hear those voices. And so we would have Whitney on or Kenya or somebody else, and those episodes always quadruple in listening or viewing.
Interesting. Bladen, you guys do a podcast as well that's not just putting like sermons and stuff. In terms of your engagement, do you see any kind of trends like that where you can identify?
Ask them questions about
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you got it. Both. It's a little bit of both.
He would love to know all that y'all know.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of having like a niche. That's kind of what you were, and that's kind of what our podcasters have done, like Tim Martin and Brian Lamaster. Our podcast is called Text Support, and it is it's not like I use this term loosely, like a Christian living podcast. It's like a little bit deeper than that, like not on the devotional level, but also has more of like a scholarly, deeper study point.
Nice.
Honestly, our education minister is just a huge nerd, like if I'm being honest.
I'd say it's more of leans an academic Bible study.
Yeah, and
you know.
but like that's what we've wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But what we wrestle with, what I really wanted to ask like these guys is like our education minister who puts a lot of work into it. Like sometimes he steps away and he's like, man, like, is this worth the effort? You know, he's like, man, like there are so many great podcasts. You know, like we've considered doing something mental health related connected to our counseling center, but I'm like, man, like, I mean, here y'all are telling me about your podcast. I'm like, we could just point people to that, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the reasons we ended up actually saying it is worth it for us is like our people seem to connect a little easier to people they knew.
Oh, yeah.
And so like we have found that to be really successful. But even at this point, I think half of our audience isn't our own people. It's really people from other locations. And we really get more feedback from others than we do our own people. And so like our education minister, when he asks himself, is this worth it? It's like, well, if 50, 60 people came to your Bible class on Monday morning and sat and listened to you and studied God's Word, would it be worth it? And we always say yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, we always have wrestled with, man, it's extra work. Like, it's a lot of work. Are there enough other resources that we don't need to do this? So we've really wrestled with that. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to kind of ask you guys, like, how have you measured, like, no, this is successful? Because, like, we want it to grow. But we've really struggled with like you can't get it to grow without promoting, and how do we ensure that we're not being like prideful about ourselves? Yeah. I mean, I know you all
It's
probably
weird.
struggle that your show,
Yeah.
Ben and Travis. I mean, what do you all have to say about
Well,
that?
it's weird because I'm
Very
always
vague.
telling him, I'm like, we're over promoting. We need to stop. And then we'll have somebody send us a message that they're like, man, we appreciate so much what you're doing. We didn't know about your podcast until like a few weeks ago when we started. And I was like, we put stuff on it day in, day
I'm
out.
learning
It feels,
about it for the
yeah.
first time today.
But it's a lot of that algorithm
Yeah.
stuff, and the algorithms. A lot of times they just don't show up on anybody's stuff. And one of the things that's really big is if you can get, and Travis does much more of the technical things than I do, but if you can get a group of people sharing it, then it kind of goes out there a little bit more. But that's just hard to do sometimes, just to get a team that goes, hey, I'll share it. If you see it, share it out there, and then that gets it in front of more people. But it's just amazing to me. I mean, we've done how many episodes? 300 episodes or something like that. And there's still people who, we know closely that don't know we have a podcast. And I always felt like we overshared everything.
What's your?
But
How often do you publish an episode?
So we do every Tuesday morning. And that's another thing that you can find pretty easily. I know even Facebook will kind of tell you. I think I don't know how accurate it is on what's the best time to post. Kind of from that class, we learned Tuesdays at 5 a.m. and that blew my mind. But Tuesdays at 5 a.m. is apparently the epitome of people looking for something they're on their way to work. Or I don't know why. Maybe they're on the way to airport, but that's everything I've looked up from Google to like specific engines is Tuesday at 5. But the main thing is the consistency of, because they get you're training them. You're training them to look, it's
Look
Tuesday,
yeah.
Helping Healing Humor, there's going to be a new one. And so like I'm very consistent on that. As far as the promotion, I mean the prophet has no love in his hometown.
Yeah.
Is so true. Like I said, I think that you think your church knows everything you're doing, and you're like trying not to, because that is tough, right? Because there's a level of humility you want to maintain, but it's also like, to Ben's point, like I post all the time, I'm tagging him, and I'm like, I'm wearing people out, and there's still people like, I just found this is crazy, and I'm like, okay, cool. But I think there is an oversaturation of free stuff to some degree within the churches of Christ. But as long as you're not going in that mindset of this is all about me, I think that humility really grows on people, and they know why you're doing it. And that's kind of why we started with our own stories, that you can know that we're big dumb animals that don't really know a whole lot.
We get a lot out of doing it.
Yes.
And so not making it a selfish thing, but like with what you guys are doing, it sounds like it's very niche as well, and it's very specific, and that he enjoys doing that. And there's going to be people who enjoy it, but if you measure the success of it by how many people are listening to it, then you may miss out on really helping the people who really want that kind of thing. And so I think for us, we've always laughed about at CYC or whatever else, we'll entertain ourselves even if nobody else is entertained. We enjoy it, we get something out of it. And so we kind of went about the podcast that way too. This helps us out. It helps us to have some camaraderie and talk to each other and talk to other people and hear other people's stories. And so if nothing else, it helps us to fellowship with each other. And hopefully somebody's going to be benefited by it. And then that consistency has maybe helped it get out there to more people.
We're probably breaking the rules and offering as much as we can. When we try to hit all the bases, which is, and Lee can probably attest to this, that's like the wrong thing to do, really, because it is so much. But I think the thing is consistency. I tell people that are getting in the podcast game, I'm like, don't, because there are people like, we're going to put one out every single day, and like, don't, that's great if you can, but you got to dedicate time to it, right? Like if you're going to make that commitment, you got to make it, and then you got to make it like if this one gets 5 listens. And so I'm much more of like once a week. He does the Friday refresh every other week. I only do the football one during football season, and it's a 3 to 5 minute, just goofball, dumb, like no football analysis whatsoever. And it's kind of the goal is to remind people, hey man, it's a game, it's fun. Let's all laugh at each other for being so serious about it. But we kind of worked the email. We had a website. We gave a freebie away. It's still up. We've got a couple of journals that we give away. We kind of capture people's email. We hit that at CYC pretty hard. We do a giveaway, but their email, and we send out an email once a week that has every bit of content that we sent out that week. And we started on Tuesdays with it because there was a new podcast episode, and I've switched to Saturdays because Saturday right before football kicks off, probably around 10 a.m. or so. And once again, you can find analytics. MailChimp will do that for you. Like, what's the best time to send this email out? But we hammer them with it. And once again, it's always mind-blowing because somebody will go like, I didn't know y'all had a YouTube or this or that. And it's always like, I'm driving people crazy. I'm sure I've lost Facebook friends over how much I post stuff. But
I appreciate you mentioning the email because we've actually discovered that's a bit of an education barrier, especially with the older demographic.
yes,
I literally had to help someone download the Apple Podcast app, which I didn't even know you could delete it. But apparently Glenn Kaufman, he knows and figured it out. But it's like the older demographic didn't even know what it was. And so like, even just trying to be like, well, like there's an episode every Monday, like you get a notification. So it's intriguing to hear y'all say how much you've leaned into email for that.
Yeah, so
we're finding we're not keeping our audience.
if you go to our page, the first thing you're going to see is, hey, before you leave, get the free, we got a 28 Days of Focused Living journal that took us 2 weeks to put together, I think. Most Grateful Thanksgiving Ever journal. My wife even put together a grocery list and meal planning. And so they go to the website, they put that in, they're going to get freebies in that email. In that email, it's got the link to this podcast, our YouTube, and then
Blog.
What we've had a lot of success with is a Facebook group. You probably already have one for your church. And so a lot of people sign up for that don't check their email. And so we've got a private Facebook group that we post everything in. They get it, when it comes out, it's going to go there. So
We try to throw a blog out there too every now and then, and so and a lot of times that's just my bulletin article, and I may
so much like
revamp it a little bit. Just free
if you're
stuff.
a minister, there's so much like evergreen content.
Yeah.
and he's got bookshelves of sermons, and I'm like, there it is, you know. And so you just grab it, put it in an email, and it's a freebie. With our mental health, there's videos on breathing techniques that come in the initial email, and so we've kind of worked that angle. We're probably behind the curve now, but that was, like I said, 2020, kind of what their course was, like get a makeshift website and add to it the best you can. And but
Anybody else got any thoughts? I know, Chad, you've started kind of a podcast. Is it exclusively YouTube?
No, we do. We use a platform called Fireside for the audio portion. We try to hit both people for that. YouTube has a podcast only feed now that you can just, if you have a channel, you can just add a podcast feed to it, which is great. So we do that. And like you said, the consistency, we've only done 30 episodes, but you're one day late on posting an episode and see who emails you.
yeah,
Like if you ever want, if Tim ever wants to skip a podcast and post it a day or two later, let him get all the emails from people who expect to have it every week. And then you will see, oh, there are actually people listening.
and I didn't
They
want to do the
actually-
video first. At
Right.
first, I was like, man, that's gonna be
Right.
a headache. But
Well, and I
it's
thought,
as well as anything else.
I thought doing the audio portion, because when we shifted from, and this is so wild to say that we, as late as 2024, we were doing cable access television in our city that only really went to the nursing homes. So we were a huge hit in nursing homes, but it was a different kind of format. It was our preacher basically, I wouldn't say regurgitating, that's a terrible word, I shouldn't have said that, but he's repackaging his sermons as little 10-minute segments and doing 10-minute segments. And he just got burnt out on that, tired of doing that. And he goes, what if we do a interview podcast? And I go,
Oh, those are big.
yeah, let's do it. And now he has to plan the guests every week, and he has to plan that every week, and he's starting to figure out, hey, that's actually a pretty big deal. But we've been able to be really consistent with that. And so he went on a mission trip, and because I have little kids, I didn't go on the mission trip, but I asked to renovate one of our upstairs classrooms into a studio, and just $800 later, we got a studio, lights, nice chairs. I mean, it's relatively soundproof, and it was really, really neat, and we've been doing that consistently for the past 30 weeks. And so some really, really good stuff, and had a lot of good fun with it. And I was just checking some of the downloads and things like that, but I've had over 1,000 downloads on just the audio portion, which
awesome.
Which is pretty great for not really promoting. And what you were saying about over promotion, I don't think there's such a thing.
I don't know if you can.
I don't think you can. There's so much noise. I mean, I think Lee would
Somebody's
agree.
gonna
know.
be offended by it, just let them be offended by
Yeah,
it.
if they're seeing too much of it, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you're not subscribed to enough stuff. then,
Yeah, and
because
you can tell a little bit by us by the gray in our beard, but that's been very difficult to get over, because it feels like
it does feel like shameless
it's-
self-promotion.
exactly.
Look at me. But it's
But
just
it's-
like, no, we're trying to get this. We've got to figure out how to
We got a message.
pierce that darkness a little bit, and get out there with it.
And we've had people come to us like, we want to we don't care how many listens you're getting, but we know that there's going to be some awareness that comes with being on your show. And because I used to send people to sponsor, I would send them all those stats, and they're like, "That's great. We're one, but you're one more place that we can get our name out or whatever."
There's a type of sponsor that wants to see that stuff. but-
Yes, yeah, and we've had
But
those.
those might not be
Yeah,
your.
but our reoccurring ones are always the ones that are like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we just love what you're doing. We want to be associated with that in some way."
Every listen and every download is a person that needs the gospel. So I will self-promote as much as I possibly
Yeah.
can to make that number rise, period. And the people that don't want to listen to it, that's fine.
There's a
Doesn't hurt my
subscribe button
feelings.
for
Yeah,
a reason. Like,
100%.
Shouldn't
you don't
hurt
have
your
to listen to
feelings, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is, but I'm trying, we went on a campaign in preaching school, and we had a guy with us that was not a student, but they would take the students on campaigns and mission trips and stuff. We had this guy go with us that wasn't a student. We got done, and we're going to dinner, and he says, I'm gonna keep going. And somebody said, why? And he said, well, I haven't had a Bible study yet today. I said,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but we knocked our area that we were supposed to knock. And he said, yeah, but I'm trying to find that one person that wants a Bible study. Same concept, right?
Yeah.
Just keep pushing it until you find the one person that needs it.
And I think that's the obstacle. You face anybody closer to my age, that's what they're gonna struggle with that. Like, I'm promoting myself, and it's no, you know, you're putting something out there that is wholesome, decent content. But I guess my experience here lately is it is a lot less about, I guess, being perfect and even looking good, especially if you've got a face for radio. But like I said, the Trey and Lee, I mean, they've got, I don't know how many downloads they've
Very
got, a
attractive people.
ton. And they're getting people, like you're saying, from the world that are just looking for good, solid marriage advice. I mean,
But like you said, there's going to be door slams in the background.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the greatest audio. It's not going to be the greatest video. The important thing is the content. and
content
that
is
people
king.
The content is key. And now, granted, all those other things need to be at least, above par.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, the whole idea is to get the message out there. And that is what they do so well, and their content is so good that it almost outweighs the fact that it's not like perfect audio and video and
Yeah.
things like that. So
Curious, I know you had to step out, but for y'all to really go big with it, you know what I mean? The
Mhm.
website, the email, etc. How did you wrestle at all with that when it came to like your ministry roles where you were? Seriously, about a week and a half ago, I'm sitting there with Brian and Tim, and we're discussing, like, them really not wanting to self-promote, but you're like, no, that's not what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
you believe in what you do, you have good content, we need to be willing to get it out there, but also just trying to balance that. It's like, well, here's some strategies we know we need to do. Like, we know video will help increase our reach.
Yeah.
We know that shorts or reels are going to help us with that. I mean, we could go down the line. Like, we've talked about, we're doing a mini series on spiritual disciplines right now. Like, why didn't we release a fasting guide or something like
Yeah.
that? Those extra things. But one of the things is like, well, to do those things, these other ministry things need to maybe take more of a back seat or go away. Like, did you all wrestle with that? Maybe within yourselves or even within your leadership? And what did that look like?
Well, Ben certainly is, I won't say they're an old school church, but I think that's been more of a difficulty with them. The church I was at when all this started is Riverside, which started a school with 80 people. And so they're a little more out of the box thinking. They were definitely getting their money out of me because I was coaching football, preaching, teaching, all the stuff. And like I said, I just kind of sold it as it was something I needed to do mentally because of what I had been through. And funny enough, I think I got hired at my next job, this job I'm at now, because of the podcast and the videos and that stuff, because they're kind of looking for someone to do that. In fact, I don't think it had anything to do with my preaching. But like they're like, no, record in the office. We want you to record in the office. It means something to us that you can get on there and say the pulpit minister at Westgate Church of Christ. And so they're a little more on the cutting edge, and I may not be doing enough that they want me to do. But that was somewhat for me. For him, it was a little bigger deal because he was at a much bigger church. And so that's kind of why I handle he shows up and records and gives me his expertise, and then I do all the kind of the legwork and stuff. But now I've trained myself to where that's just what I do. That's my schedule. And it's like last week we didn't have an episode, and so then it's like, what do I do with all this time I have on my hands? I guess I could minister to people one-on-one, but I think what you're going to see, I mean, you guys your digital ministry is what you're doing, and I think that the more people and the quicker churches get on board, and I think they're going to be, and in one way, that's one way I'm thankful for COVID, because I think one of the positives is it's pushed people to kind of step into that role. But for me, I just needed to get my story out there, and it was a way of sharing my trauma with the leukemia thing and being a foster parent, and it just so happened that people responded to that. And I think people have a desire for real. They want you to put it out there that these people are struggling. Because I think as a preacher, there's pressure to be perfect. And so when you get a Trey out there who says this or that, and the gospel itself pushes the envelope, but then you get your real self out there as well. What's been really crazy to me is the new job I'm in, how many people have come up to me and said, I haven't met you personally yet, but I've listened to a lot of your episodes and I feel like I know who you are. And so in that, it's kind of helped in the transition because they kind of knew what they were getting into. God bless them. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, that's great.
I think what we wrestled with was how real can we be and keep our job. Riverside's a lot different in that aspect. Like they were very open to that, and Westgate seems to be as well. But I'm gonna have to run.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for coming by.
I love all
Hey,
y'all.
Sharon. Appreciate
Keep
you,
rocking
man.
and rolling. We would love to have you on the episode on an episode of the Helping Healing, or if you like to talk football, we can have you on there too. But feel free to reach out. It's hello@benandtravis.com if you got a question or you need to know how not to do it. Figured that out.
Folly is
real quick.
just as valuable as wisdom.
Yes.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, you're good. Man.
That is a real problem.
What if we do this? What if we start with Chad and just kind of go around the table? If you got something, an idea that has been successful or that has bombed, then share that. If you've got a question, feel free to ask that, and we'll kind of see how the conversation goes. That just has kind of a natural progression. Does that work for everybody?
So I get to start, huh?
You're wearing the red shirt. It says, "Look at me." So,
So, I don't know how many of y'all, we have lots of teachers in here. Do you preach or teach?
On occasion.
Okay. I teach. I do not preach very much, but I teach nearly nonstop. Being an education minister, that's what you do, right? Sometimes I'm teaching 3 and 4 Bible classes a week. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2. I have found that having a digital file cabinet has been the most stress relieving, simple thing for me to do. And I use 2 tools for that. If you do any kind of writing, any kind of note taking, any kind of stuff, this would also apply to you. I use something on the Mac called, or it's on Windows as well, called Obsidian. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It is they call it PKM software, which is basically personal knowledge, or PKD, personal knowledge database software. I don't know what that means. All I know is that it really organizes my notes in a really, really nice way. And no, it's not like Apple Notes. No, you can't put images and drawings and things in it. It's really just text. But at the same time, you can link notes together to where I can say this links to this, and I can hit that and it goes to this note and things like that. But even more, adding on to that, there's tons of notes applications. But even adding on to that, as an Obsidian user, what I can do now is I have tied all of those files. I think I'm up to like 1,300 files over the last 20 years, 15 years or something like that. What I did was dump all of those into something called Notebook LM. Has anybody ever heard of Notebook LM? Okay. The young guys are like, oh yeah, I know about all this stuff. Say what?
Never mind, go ahead. There's a creepy AI tool I know, that sounds very similar.
So Notebook LM was, I'm pretty sure it was always a Google product. Or maybe it was bought by Google, I can't remember which, but it's now under Google's umbrella. And it is basically, to me, and the way, I'm sure you could use it in lots of other different situations, but to me, it is my personal search engine. Because I've got so much now. Now, this would not be good for somebody that only has maybe a few hundred files, but now that I've got 1,000+ files, I could go in here and literally talk to it like ChatGPT, using only the resources that I give it. Does that make sense? So if I've got a PDF of, I don't know, a brotherhood book or something like that, throw that in there, and I can actually ask it questions on that. So what I've mainly done is use it as my personal database and say, hey, when did I last preach about this? Like just asking it common questions instead of trying to sift through and search all these different things. It's been really, really fantastic because turns out, you can preach stuff twice and you can teach stuff twice, believe it or not. And it's really been pretty valuable for me. And what I'm using it for is pretty simple. And I do pay for the $20 a month Google thing, but Graymeter gives me a little bit of a discretionary budget per month that I can use for that kind of stuff. So I am very fortunate in that instance. But between that, Claude, and ChatGPT, I have been able to just completely speed up stuff that I'm looking for. I feel like I spent half the day looking for stuff. And Notebook LM will find it for me just like that. So anytime I create a new file, I'll like update it every month, and I'll put all my new files into it, and it'll chew those up, and it'll add it to the database, and then I can search it like I would use it. It's like my personal chat GPT. It's really, really cool. So that's my thing. I've got a lot of other integrations that I've found where, if you haven't ever heard of Docker, Docker is like the Swiss Army knife of like anything you want to do with it. I can tie in Docker to my Claude database, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Claude as the AI tool, but I can tell Claude to like add notes for me. So I can go into Claude right now and go, hey, I need to find a recipe for chicken or whatever, lemon pepper chicken, and then I want you to put that into a note in my Obsidian database, and it literally just pulls up the page, copies the text, puts it in my notes, and my notes are all there. And so it's just incredible. There's so many different, like I've got this spider web of integrations, and so I'll stop talking, but that's just really been pretty
Random
amazing
question for you. For guys that may be looking to go into ministry or starting in ministry, or that are starting even in like finance or whatever, like, what would be the workflow you would recommend based on what you're doing now? Because you've had a lot of workflows over the years.
I would do everything. To me, what I would recommend is get out of, there's nothing wrong with the Apple Notes app. There's nothing wrong with Evernote. There's nothing wrong with note-taking systems like that. I would remove myself out of those right now, because what I learned 15 years ago probably was that having text files with just everything, I can put those anywhere. They will be able to be read on anything. If I am working in Microsoft Word, there's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to open up an old Word file from 10 years ago on a new version of Word. There's just, and I cannot stand that. So if I'm not doing formatted, graphical stuff, if it's just text, I'm going with something like Obsidian and just text files, storing them in Dropbox or storing them in iCloud, and then having it all synced to my phone and my iPad and things like that. And that way, all of that stuff is portable. That's where I would start.
How do you integrate your handwritten notes and stuff?
So what I do with my handwritten notes is I'll do little notebooks like this, and I'll take a note. Every time I finish a notebook, I've got a flatbed scanner, an old school like flatbed scanner, and I'll just put that right on there, scan every page into it. It takes about half an hour for a book, and then I will run an OCR program through ChatGPT, which is OCR is optical character recognition, and it will pull out the text from that. It's not always perfect, but I feel like it's getting better like by the day. And so it will pull all that text, and I write pretty neat anyway, so it has a good chance of getting it right. And so then that text, all those pages, that book becomes a file. And I'll say this is October to November of 2025. I call them my notebooks, my personal knowledge database notebooks. And so put that in there, and then it'll be searchable in Notebook LM. It's searchable in Obsidian. It's pretty fantastic.
See you too. Thanks for coming, man.
And I feel like writing stuff down, that's what I would do. Taking notes on your iPad, or maybe even with an Apple Pencil on iPad, is like really cool. But like pen and paper, man, I feel like I retain that so much better. And that sounds so old school, but for me, it just sinks in better. So every note I'm taking is usually going to be on pen and paper, and unless I'm doing some sort of presentation on it.
So what I was saying earlier, it is the same. Have you used the podcasting feature of Notebook LM?
No, I have
Are you
not touched
aware of
that.
it?
I am aware of it. See, that's the
Very,
thing. I
very
feel like
quickly.
Notebook LM is like the Photoshop
Yeah, I was gonna
of
say,
like knowledge database programs, and I'm using like 1% of it. But
For
I've,
Notebook LM, you can just drop whatever sources you want, including, I didn't even know, like, what you're talking about, I didn't even know it did. I only knew about the podcasting thing. You can grab a Wikipedia page, drop the link in there. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. It will create a 30-minute podcast.
I've done that actually. I
With
forgot about.
2 hosts sounding very organic. It is very, very, very creepy.
What's really creepy
Um,
is something you've wrote they're talking about. That's the even creepier part.
You should check it out, though. It's worth just seeing, like, it's unreal. It's so creepy.
But that, I mean, you could technically put that, if something you wrote, you could technically put that out as a podcast if you wanted to. Say it was AI generated and
It's creepy.
roll with it. You could listen, instead of reading, you could listen to that in the car. If somebody sends you notes on something and you say, oh, I missed that, you could put that transcript in there and you could make a podcast out of it and listen to it on your phone while you're driving down the road. I mean, it's just, there's so many applications for it. Really cool. That's mainly what I want to share, like the 5 or 6 things I wanted to share.
Thanks. Continuing with our first letter C.
I don't really know if I specifically have anything to share since I've technically been doing the tech part, or at least the social media part of my job for 10 weeks, 11 weeks. But I guess I will kind of at least just talk about the landscape that I've kind of walked into. And so the really interesting thing about coming to Buford was that we already had somebody on staff, and she worked 2 days a week, and her entire job was specifically social media. They did a really, really good job of putting an emphasis on using social media. There have been there was a lot of money put behind it as well. And it was a very consistent posting schedule, about 3 to 4 times a week on Facebook and Instagram. The problem was, especially by the time that I got there, it was, I don't want to say anything negative about it, but it was very much images with text of a Bible verse on top of it and posting it and paying money to get it in front of people. And so that is what I inherited. Basically, my job is originally did not have social media as a part of it. And then we found out just a couple of months into that she was going to retire. And so I was interested in that aspect of the position. And so that has since been, we've kind of reformatted what I'm doing. And social media is now included in that. But I knew that if I was going to be responsible for social media, we were by no means going to do that same thing, because that is not the generation that I am a part of that would do something like that, and also be very Facebook heavy and very much of just like Instagram as the afterthought, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of what I walked into, but also I walked into some very good numbers, I guess, if you want to put it that way. They ran kind of their final numbers of everything, and apparently in the first 6 months of 2025, our post had basically reached roughly 10 million screens. So just meaning they put a lot of money behind that, and a lot of old people really like to see a Bible verse and comment amen. And that's just a thing they like to do. And I got to see that thousands and thousands of times. And so a lot of our stuff was being shared. A lot of it was being commented on, seen in front of a lot of people. And it did have our logo on it. So that's cool because people were able to at least see, Buford Church of Christ on things like that. However, that I do not believe was the purpose or the goal of why we should have social media in the first place associated with our church. I don't have there's no problem with us being in front of a lot of people, But at the same time, I feel like the most effective thing and the most helpful thing for us is for it to be a useful tool for outreach, for it to not be something that goes, nationally across everywhere, because we're not going to really be able to reach the people that live states away from us versus the people that live in our community. And so even from the very beginning, I have really kind of changed the way that we are navigating this entire landscape. Everything that we do for Facebook and Instagram, basically we format it in two different ways. If it is if it's a post that goes on Instagram, even if it's a photo, kind of like here was one of our events that we did. I actually typically will kind of put them in more of kind of a framed thing. There's a little bit more of a design to it versus Facebook. We just upload it as an album. If it is, if we do the verses, which we still do those like every 6 posts or so, then we try to, kind of format those appropriately. And then one of the big things that I also wanted to do was, well, obviously, we have somebody that gets in the pulpit every week and is speaking. And so one of the big things that I wanted to do was make reels using that person, whoever was in the pulpit, most of the time Kyle, but sometimes, in fact, our last one is Chad. And basically getting to take that and also make sure that it looks good, getting high quality footage for that, and then integrating that into a reel that we can use, that we can share. And then also, instead of spending a whole lot of money just to get our stuff in front of everybody, most of our stuff is now targeted specifically to the zip codes that are, within 10 miles or so of our area. Because what we want to do is we want to get in front of as many people that are likely to come and visit us. And so that's kind of been the thing that I'm navigating now and trying to understand, and also learning a lot from. And so that's kind of been my just adventure through all of that. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been stressful initially, but I feel like I'm at least kind of starting to understand the schedule in which I need to do all of these things. I will also share that one of the very first events that when I first got hired, I kind of had this like first 6 months calendar where everything led up to our fall festival. And it was kind of like everything that you do is all kind of contributing to the fall festival. And also I was given the responsibility of basically planning the entirety of the festival. And that took place about 3 weeks ago. It was whenever Chad was there. It was that same weekend, the day before, October 4th. And so one of the big things that we wanted to do, or that I wanted to make sure that we did, was use our social media effectively. And so we did create a couple of reels specifically to promote that, and do some local promotion. And then we also did a Facebook post. There's just a general post with the information on there. And the way that we kind of advertised it is we basically told people, basically sign up now to get your free ticket. No ticket is required. It's a completely free event, and everything about it was completely free. But in doing that, we wanted to give people the mentality of, oh, I need to get this thing, and they're offering it to me for free. And so that kind of created some incentive there. And then we, of course, like I said, we boosted it locally, and then we integrated it through Planning Center. We actually haven't fully launched Planning Center at Buford yet. We're doing that next week. But I got to kind of use it. And so what we did was we set it up in a way where anybody that did the form, that filled out a form for this, so basically they click on the advertisement. It takes them to the form at Planning Center. They fill out the form. It then creates them there's an automation that then makes them into a community event guest in our system. So then we have their information, and they're now put into a new type of membership within that list. Once they do that, it also automates signing them up or registering them for the event, which then kind of gives them that ticket and sends them an email basically telling them, hey, you are registered for this event. And so we set it up that way and we advertise that. We would typically have about 10 families that would register per day, and we ran the advertisement for about 20 days. So we ended up with about 200 families that signed up through that. Now, not all of them did attend, but we had a pretty good ratio of those people that did attend from what we did. And then also, of course, we had additional people that would come. We tested out a few other things. We did also do we did mail outs because they've always done it, and I didn't want to completely cut it, but we're going to cut it next year because it did not return. We also asked people how they found out about us, and majority of those all came from social media. It was not from the stuff that we put out there. Like a handful of people were from the signs that we had up, but most of it was specifically from social media. And so basically, we got to have a whole lot of families that came and visited. That also gave us a whole lot of data that I then was able to take and send out follow-up information. Got to kind of connect with some people, got to have some conversations online about, people that were interested in having a visit or having a Bible study or, whatever additional things that they were interested in. And so it was really cool. Obviously, in all of this, I'm still very much in kind of the learning phases of trying to figure out how to best utilize all of the tools that I have access to. And there is no shortage of those things, especially just already from what Buford provides. But it's been really cool just to kind of navigate all of this and see, what things are going to be most effective, what things are going to be, really most helpful in accomplishing that task. Because more than anything, in taking on this role, I really want the church to be outward focused. I want them to be thinking about, what can we do to organically create growth. And I wholeheartedly believe that social media and having access to these things online is one of the most effective ways that we can do that. And so this has just been a fun way to kind of get to go through all of those things, and I'm excited to keep learning more and just understanding this stuff as we go. But
It's exciting, man.
yeah,
Welcome to the brother.
thank you.
That's cool. What have you received pushback on some of the? I know right now you're analyzing and you're starting to make sounds like some minor tweaks, but have you? Has that been a hard process? I guess with her retiring, the biggest emotional attachment probably there is not necessarily as much of a factor. But are other people seeing the changes you're making? Have you had mostly positive, or been some?
It has been mostly positive. I think honestly, the most pushback that I've had is I actually made the decision to do some minor changing to our logo on Instagram, because you cannot view it with all of the words in the circle that's this big. So I simplified it, and then it was kind of a discussion of, did we change our logo? And I was like, no, we didn't change the logo. We're just kind of doing this. But I think that was a little difficult to kind of just, they saw something different and they were a little concerned about it. So it's little things like that. And then I think outside of that, honestly, I think one of the other things is trying to understand how they view social media. And, now they see that people can come in, people can see the things that we're doing online and now want to come and be a part of those things. And so then I think now it's kind of, there's a little bit of a conversation of, well, if we put an event online, are we advertising it to our people, or are we advertising it to the community? And what if it's an event that's not meant for the community but ends up bringing in the community? And so those are some conversations that we're trying to have and kind of navigate, which obviously a lot of it comes down to the promotion of it and how much we're boosting it to go out to, you know, other people versus how much it's just going out to the people that are following us. And so